So, from what I've discovered, it was made in around 1984 or 1985 in the Soviet Union. In one of the smaller republics, not Russia itself. Which one my source couldn't remember. And it was funded and produced by a black marketeer. What they called in the Soviet Union, and this isn't my attempt at a racist Russian fart joke, Fartsovshchik. It was written by, directed by and starred his much younger wife. It's called Once When I Was Young, and is in essence a rip-off of Western soap operas. Soap operas had begun to be smuggled over and traded behind the Iron Curtain at this time in the 80s, and from what I've discovered, the pirate videos sold at extortionate prices and were a particular hit among the affluent wives of the black marketeers. I guess if I was writing an article or a dissertation about it here, I'd tell you about the rumours and theories I found that suggest them rather being smuggled into the Soviet Union, that the soap operas were targeted pieces of Western propaganda, and that the affluent wives of the black marketeers were the intended targets of this propaganda. They would have of course made the perfect targets, the ideal transmitters of the Western virus, being as that they shared beds with the underground hubs themselves, the black marketeers. Later on in the article or dissertation that I'm not writing, I would talk about how perhaps the soap opera's narrative form itself, its endless form, as an endless story, as an open-ended serial, appealed to those behind the Iron Curtain because it suggested, semiotically at least, post-scarcity, and therefore added another layer of appealing fantasy to the already embedded, heightened drama of day-to-day life, the theatre of the humdrum. So this particular wife, I picture her at home alone on the sofa looking after her husband's illegal wealth, watching grainy pirate copies of Days of Our Lives, and at some point the idea came to her to make her own. It could of course been his idea, something just to keep her busy, but I don't think so. I think it's all her, and once I describe the show to you I think you'll understand why. The first tape I found by chance at a flea market in Riga, the Latvian capital. It was at the Russian flea market, the one next to the burnt down synagogue. It wasn't even for sale, it was just on the floor next to the rubbish bin, and crushed plastic cans in between those cigarette butts and those foam boxes that you get at Greasy Food Inn at markets around the world. What caught my eye was that the title was in English. Yeah, I suppose that's an important point in all this that I've forgotten, or maybe I was just getting around to now. In a very literal attempt to reproduce Western soap operas, Once When I Was Young is entirely in English. It wasn't just the title being in English that caught my eye, but the tape's cover. The tape was in like a proper box, and although it was cracked and scuffed and the cover faded, I could still make out the collage clearly, and it was really interesting. The title had been handwritten in careful, delicate felt-tip pen, and then cut out and placed on top of a collage of photos of a woman, always the same woman, wearing different outfits. And then underneath this collage was a collage of interior and exterior scenes which themselves seemed to have been cut out of magazines or pilfered from photo albums. Most of the interiors are from the same house. It's large but sparsely furnished. It turns out this is the house that the entirety of the first episode of Once When I Was Young takes place in. The sole location and the sole set. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. I picked up the tape and I took it back with me to London. And a few years passed and I forgot about it, and it remained at the bottom of my bin bag of belongings that I carried around with me as I drifted from attic to cellar, from sofa to floor. Until finally I found myself in a squat with an old VCR, and the bin bag chose this moment to finally tear. I mean, perhaps you can call it fate or luck or just a shitty bin bag, and I rediscovered the tape and decided to watch it. I was alone and it was cold, so I wrapped my sleeping bag around myself and drank a large glass of whiskey. The tape started.
Once, when I was young, and the wind still extracted me, I met a pretty girl. When the chase still excited me, but she had a look. A man who watched her like a hawk. But his love left her empty for many years. We kept our love alive. But then one day, she left, and I traveled to find her, to be with her. And then we met the kid. But all we had seen, and all we had done, saved our kid. Her lips were cracked, mine were hard, and the village did nothing to cheer.
That monologue is at the start of every tape I've tracked down. You might think it's an odd way to start a soap opera. I did. I've listened to it over and over again, and I don't know what to make of it. Someone commented on one of my posts once on a forum I used to research the tape and track down other episodes, suggesting that the monologue is a translation of an ancient Slavic folk song. But the user was anonymous, never posted again, and never replied to any of my messages. I've tried to find any trace of this song on the internet and accosted anyone of Slavic heritage at bars and pubs and parties, but with no luck. What follows isn't any easier to understand. The first episode follows our protagonist through a series of everyday encounters with characters who through their own spontaneous volition choose to obstruct her with a series of absurd yet specific and seemingly impossible demands and claims. Again, if I was writing a dissertation or an article on Once When I Was Young, I would talk about how perhaps this is the creator alluding to their own experience living under communist bureaucracy, or just being boringly Kafkaesque. But I find no evidence of the creator having any sophisticated motivations at all. As I mentioned earlier, the only location in the entire episode is the large but sparsely furnished house, and the only person, the only character we ever see, on camera, is the woman pictured on the cover, the woman I later discovered to be the writer and director, the earlier mentioned black marketeer's wife. Someone did once tell me her name, but that file, along with the rest of my painstakingly stoned research about the show, was lost when someone spilled a bottle of rum on my computer at a film festival after party. I tried to remember as many details from the files as I could and wrote them down, dredging my memory for all possible nuggets, but when it came to a name, a significant and vital bit of information, I drew a blank. It's not to say that there aren't any other characters in the show. In fact, there are many other characters. Sometimes up to 10 in the same scene, or maybe it's better to say in the same conversation. It's just that the camera never strays from her. All other characters exist solely as disembodied voices off screen. Often there are so many characters and voices coming from the area off screen that it's hard to imagine they'd all fit in the room as it's been shown to us. Many of the voices struggle to deliver their lines, trying as hard as they can to pronounce the foreign words in front of them, but there are those among them who speak English well. And these are all women, and I've come to believe, and this is pure supposition on my part, that these voices belong to the wives of other black marketeers who've honed their English through hours of watching their own pirate copies of Western soaps. And after multiple re-listenings, I'm even sure I managed to pick up a slight Mancunian twang to one of the voices, and have therefore come to the conclusion that this particular wife was a Corrie fan, like my nan. In order to avoid having to describe the entire episode and everything that happens in it, I'm going to focus on one particular scene. The scene takes place in a kitchen, and seems, and I say seems not to be vague, but because to pretend with any conviction that I understand what the scene's about would be dishonest. But it seems to be about the protagonist planning a dinner party, or maybe a birthday party, or perhaps even a wake. But whatever it is, she starts off by listing, apparently to herself, the items she needs to buy, like a shopping list. She starts with champagne, but already the first voice intervenes. It's a man's voice who tells her that the champagne has poisoned his wife. Yeah, that's right, he responds as if rather than being something she's planning to buy, it's something that she has already purchased, served, and it has already poisoned his wife. From here the scene descends into a tangled mess. All in all, I count 6 voices coming from off screen, all speaking as if the event the protagonist is planning is at different stages of completion. Tenses shift and perspectives change, possible futures trade barbs with unfinished pasts, linear time ceases to exist, destroyed by the same disembodied voices that have banished the linear space of the kitchen through the cramped impossibility of them all being in that room at the same time. I did once try to draw a plan of the kitchen in which this scene takes place, and that's another reason I've chose this scene to discuss. It's one of the few scenes where the camera follows the protagonist into the room and we're given a momentary glance of the room in its entirety, allowing me to sketch the shape. And using the oven, which turned out to be an illegally imported and Googleable West German model as a point of reference, I estimated the size of the kitchen. It's about 100 square feet. There's what I think you call a kitchen island in the middle of the room, and this is about 4 feet long and 2 feet wide, which knocks 8 square feet off the total space available. And taking into account the work surfaces and the fridge and everything else in the room, there can't be more than 65 square feet free for the characters to inhabit. It's safe to say that by the end of this initial viewing, I was fascinated. I had a lot of time on my hands, being in possession of a certain amount of privilege and basically a free place to live, and I needed something to fill my time, and I thought maybe this could be it. But it was more than that. I knew I had to find out more about Once When I Was Young, and most of all find out if there was any more of it out there. I did try to explain it and even show it to some people in the squat, but none of them were interested. One called me antisocial. So I turned to the internet, and through persistence, luck and insomnia, I uncovered some of the first tidbits of information. What followed was weeks and months of research, the record of which, as I mentioned earlier, was lost during an after party, and eventually I got lucky. I found a post on a Japanese Anglophile forum from a student requesting someone help him translate a VHS his parents had brought back from their holidays in Europe. This turned out to be episode 4. 4. That meant that there were at least 2 more episodes out there, hopefully still intact. It was an exciting thought. I messaged the user on the Japanese forum in English and then again in Google translated Japanese. The post was over a year old by the time I found it, and I was pessimistic about the possibility of receiving a reply, but I did, and only 1 day later. I came in drunk from the pub, and after puking in the toilet and finishing the rest of my kebab, I saw the message. After a rapid back and forth exchange, I agreed to buy the tape for £100, which was at the time all the money I had. 2 weeks dole, but I was desperate. Where the first episode was bewildering, absurd, and fascinating and funny, the 4th episode is disturbing and, well, the house in which the first episode took place doesn't appear once in the 4th episode. The scenes play out in a series of what appear to be hotel rooms, and then there's another house, which is undecorated and even unfinished. The episode finds our protagonist in a state. From the first moment she's screaming and crying, striking the beige and grey walls of the hotel rooms with her fist. Mascara runs down her cheeks, and in one scene she tears a wedding dress, ripping at it with her teeth and howling like an injured dog. The disembodied voice don't make an appearance. In fact, the only other voice we hear, speaking Russian off-screen, perhaps on the phone or to someone else, It's almost inaudible and quiet under the strange melancholy music that smothers the scene. My reaction to the tape, more than anything, was a feeling of, well, if this is what's on the 4th episode, if this is how she is by the 4th episode, what's happened to what is on the 2nd and the 3rd tapes? It made me want them more than ever. I mean, it was just so... I mean, the first one was mad, but this is insane. I mean, she literally, and I'm not making this up, she literally eats a wedding dress while howling like a dog. It's absolutely insane. And well, that brings it up to now. The discovery I made this week. That brings us right up to about now, to the discovery I made last week. A friend or a friend forwarded me a photo one of their friends had uploaded from a recent trip to Geneva. It's a pretty normal holiday picture. A couple smiling in the sun. They both wear Converse and High Street Ray-Ban copies. The couple are standing in front of a second-hand shop, a junk shop with a window crowded with what appears to be, and most probably is in any real sense of the word, trash. Among the items cramped into the window display is an LP of Hitler's speeches, a gollywog cuckoo clock, a collection of Toby mugs bearing the likenesses of popes, and just visible, squeezed between it all, a VHS cassette bearing the title, Once When I Was Young. I sent a reply to my friend, asking them to ask their friend to ask their friend exactly where in Geneva the photo was taken. The answer still pending. I booked a Ryanair flight for the very next day and went to bed. I woke up on time and dragged myself out of bed and to the station. The little board told me that the train was due in 2 minutes. There was a teenage girl standing using the ticket machine on the platform. She was holding a plastic bag in one hand, out of which she took coins. One by one she rubbed the coins on the metal plating on the front of the machine and then deposited them. If the machine didn't accept the coin the first time, she repeated the process over and over again until the machine eventually accepted it. I waited while she paid for her ticket. It took ages, coin by coin. When she had her ticket in her hand, she started the entire process again, taking another coin out of the plastic bag and inserting it into the machine. It was spat back out again, and she picked it up and began rubbing it on the metal plating. The train was approaching. I need to buy a ticket. Oh. So can I just buy my ticket and then you can carry on? How are you going to pay? With card? But the card reader was broken. Okay, then with cash. This machine only accepts foreign coins. What are you talking about? This machine only takes foreign coins. Yes, you said that already, but what does that mean? It means you can't pay here with cash or card. Only with foreign coins. The train is arriving on the platform. So how did you pay? With foreign coins, of course. She opened the bag to reveal that all the coins contained inside were in fact foreign coins. The train leaves the platform. But why? This is my mother's coin collection, left over from all her trips abroad. She travels a lot for work, but I hate my mother, and I stole the coins, and then I came all the way from the other side of town to use this particular machine to buy tickets, because I knew it only takes foreign coins. But why are you buying tickets in the first place? It's the only way I can exchange the foreign coins. I'll buy tickets and I'll sell them on. Another train arrives at the platform. So can I buy a ticket from you? Yes, but only in cash. I took out a note and handed it to her. She considered it in her hand for a moment, and then put it in her pocket. I took the ticket she offered me. When I looked back at her, she was holding out a handful of foreign coins. Your change. But how do you... This machine recognises all foreign coins as being worth 10 cents. I saw the train doors were closing and ran onto the train. I found a seat. I tried not to think about the girl and the bag of stolen foreign coins. I had a plane to catch and a tape to locate. Like I mentioned earlier, I hate flying. And the flight got off to a bad start. When I was younger, I spent a long time really up on plane crashes and on the statistics. So now I'm just scared during takeoff and landing. There's always one moment in which this fear crystallises into that perfect thought. I'm going to die. But the thought passes and disintegrates back into an endless stream of imperfect thoughts. In order to avoid this fearful moment, or at least keep it at arm's reach, I drink before and during flying, and also listen to a carefully curated playlist of songs I liked when I was 15. There was a time when this wasn't allowed, the listening to music, not the drinking, when they used to make you turn off all kinds of electronic devices and remove your headphones, force you to sit there and listen to the sound of an accelerating jet engine. I always thought it was ridiculous. How could a plane, the white man's chosen mode of transportation, be so vulnerable? And now, at least a decade since they changed that rule, the flight attendant is telling me that I can't listen to my carefully selected playlist of songs I liked when I was 15 during takeoff. So I was in a bad mood. It was an unusually cold day. In fact, snowfall in August, I'd always believed, to be impossible. But after 2 attempts at landing in a snowstorm that looks like TV static, we're informed that we're being diverted to another airport. As a consolation, we each get a free biscuit. But it doesn't feel free, since it's one of those small Italian biscuits that you only ever get free with coffee anyway. After we get off the plane, I queue with everyone else for an hour. The other passengers, people I consciously don't name or give personality traits, because that would suggest I'm in a story. Maybe at the start of a story, and something dramatic could happen at any moment, and I'm too tired for all of that. I forgot to mention it earlier, but I'm tired. Really, really fucking tired. After an hour of queuing, we board a bus for the bus that's going to take us to our original intended destination. And we get a few miles towards the Alps before we stop. When I look out the window, I see a few police cars. I assume it's a border check. I get back to looking out the window at the cars and the snow, listening to music. When I look back up, the bus driver is standing up, and him and everyone else is looking at me. I take off my headphones and wait for someone to say something. The bus driver takes another step towards me, and I can see clearly now. I couldn't before because my contact lens prescription is out of date. But now I can clearly see he's really fucking angry. Is it true what everyone's saying? He asks me through gritted teeth. What's everyone saying? I ask. If possible, he somehow even looks angrier now. He looks around at everyone else on the bus and says with his face, "What the fuck?" Then he takes another step forwards and takes off his hat. Everyone says, "You look wrong." Wrong? Yeah, wrong. He's gone full mad lad. Cock bouncer pitbull eyes. I have no idea what you're talking about. Suddenly I'm thrown forward, knocked from my seat. I hit my nose on the seat in front and look behind me. Where I expect to see the face of a child, I see the face of an old man grinning with sunken eyes. Now the driver starts again, grinding his teeth like millstones. "You weren't on the plane." Yes, I fucking was. Look, I reach into my pocket to take out my boarding pass, and the malicious pensioner kicks out again, sending the vital crumpled piece of paper disappearing under the seat in front. The bus driver reaches out and puts his hand on me and guides me out of my seat into the front door. We're stopped at a service station. He gives me a shove. And still in a state of profound confusion, I let his firm arm and the collective pressure of my fellow travellers' eyes send me off the bus. The door closed behind me, and then I'm alone. The snowstorm has stopped, but everything is already covered in a thick layer of snow. And despite the situation, I'm momentarily overcome with childlike glee at the sight of it, and allow myself to run around kicking at it until I get cold feet and realise I don't have my bag. My bag containing my money and my passport. I start to walk towards the service station, admiring the holes my steps make in the snow, and ponder my situation. But it's hard to ponder because I don't have any idea what my situation is. I suppose I'm having what's commonly called a bad day. But I haven't yet worked out the rules, so I can't possibly know how to proceed. I'm paralysed pending more data. I've had days like this before. Days where everything suddenly seems out of my hands, where cause and effect suddenly turn malicious, and the unwanted and the unexpected become common occurrence. But there are stranger forces at play here. A snowstorm in August, for example, contradicts everything I thought I knew about the weather, and the look on that bus driver's face, and on all the other faces. It was as if I did indeed look fundamentally wrong to them. When I reach the petrol station, I realise it's getting dark, and there are no cars on the forecourt. I find a few coins in my inside pocket and decide to buy something to eat. Behind the automatic doors, it's warm and well lit. An old woman stands behind the counter. She wears a little red waistcoat with a little pin badge shaped like a sausage. I approach the counter and look at the croissants and cakes and sausages behind the glass. I count my money once again and order a sausage. I wait, patiently, while she puts on a white glove and with the gloved hand picks up the sausage. She deposits the sausage on a small paper plate, and I see that where the sausage has touched the glove, there remains fatty marks. She removes the glove, and with the now ungloved hand hits some keys on the till. The price is much higher than I expected, and so I assume there must be some hidden tax. It's all the money I've got. But now she's already done the whole glove thing, so I feel like the right thing to do is pay. I take my sausage outside and eat it. I suppose I'll hitchhike and then call the airline and bus company about my bag once I get to the hostel. It's not so strange. Lost property is a common occurrence. It might be an adventure. So I finish my sausage and wait an hour, but no cars come. I'm cold, so I go back inside and see the woman wearing the sausage bag seems to be closing up. I'm panicked. You're not closing, are you? She nods. I thought you'd be open all night. No, I close now. But what if someone needs petrol? There's no traffic at this time of night. She continues closing up, and as I watch her take the last grilled sausages off the small metal rollers where they are kept warm, I think about asking her if I can get another one for free, but don't because I feel like she'll say no, and the tape and my indulgent interest in it now seem very, very far away, and the cold air on the other side of the automatic door seems very, very near. But the toilet will stay open all night? Of course not. But I'll freeze to death. She's finished wiping down the surfaces with window cleaner, and takes off her sausage badge and places it on the counter, like a cop in an American movie handing over his badge and his gun. I get the idea. She's off duty now. Please, I'm begging with real sincerity. I use my eyes and a slight bend of my knees, but she doesn't budge. She turns the lights off and I follow her towards the door. Outside, the wind lashes my face. It's bitterly cold. She begins to walk away from me. I call after her. Could you at least drive me to the nearest town or village, wherever you live? She turns and looks at me. I don't have a car and I live in the city. She continues walking away towards the road, leaving deep footprints in the snow. I despair of my situation and turn back to look at the petrol station. I stomp on the snow and clench my fists. This is a joke that's gone too far. It can't be happening. Not to me. Not now. I hear the sound of a car. I turn around just in time to see a car stopping next to where the now off-duty sausage bad woman is standing by the side of the road, her thumb stuck out in the universal signal of hitchhiking. I start to run, but they drive off, along the road towards where it cuts through the mountain. So I'm alone again, and the snow makes the silence extra silent. It's almost like I could be on another planet. The world turned upside down, or inside out. Now the desperation stopped being a thought, and becomes something much more urgent. A need that acts directly on my muscles and my limbs. I march to the back of the petrol station and kick open the door to the toilet. Once inside, I lock myself in the toilet cubicle and crawl up on the floor. It's a position and place I've slept in many times in my life, so my body puts up little resistance, and I fall asleep. I'm woken in the middle of the night to see the light on the toilet is on, and 2 feet are visible under the cubicle door. My first thought is that it's the police, and I climb up onto the toilet to hide my feet, like you see in horror films. While considering my next move, I extend my legs and push my feet against the door, bracing it. I wait, and then I hear the sound of someone pissing. Why are you locked in the toilet? I needed a place to sleep, and this is, as it turns out, my only possibility. I run the man's voice through my finely tuned filter of judgment and deem him unthreatening and probably not a cop, so I stop bracing the door with my feet and open it. The man at the urinal has long grey hard rock fan hair and is wearing a leather trench coat, which he holds back by tucking his right arm underneath the back of it while he pisses. Need a lift? Yes, I do. Where are you headed? Geneva. You got any money? I hesitate to answer. Some. It's a lie, but seeing where honesty has got me, it seems about time I start lying. He's finally done pissing and does up his fly, and lets the leather trench coat fall back into place. I can give you a lift to Geneva. That would be great. I follow the man outside to his car. It's a car that looks like the one from Knight Rider. I can't tell you the actual model because I know nothing about cars. The upholstery is all black leather, and when he gets ready to drive, he puts on leather fingerless gloves. We drive in silence along the road that cuts through the mountain. It's still dark and the roads are empty. After a while, he looks at me and says, "We glide." He smiles and reveals strangely sharp teeth. As we approach the border, I begin to get nervous. I don't have my passport, and the thought hadn't occurred to me before, but now it does, and I wonder what will happen if they catch me trying to cross the border with no passport. I can't remember if it's a crime or not. Is it a crime just to attempt to cross the border unpapered? Is unpapered a word, or is it paperless? Attempts can't be a crime, can they? But sometimes they can, sometimes they are. Now I'm nervous. He seems to notice and he smiles again. "I've changed my mind, you can just drop me somewhere here, before the border." "What's wrong?" "Nothing, I've just changed my mind." "Are you a criminal?" "No, I mean, I shouldn't be, at least. I haven't done anything wrong yet, or anything illegal." "I can help you." "It's fine, don't worry. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. We all find ourselves on the wrong side of a border every now and again. There's just so many of the damn things." He smiles again. I try not to look. "I'm not embarrassed, it's just this is all new to me and I'm feeling unsure." "You need my help, I'm certain of that." Being unsure, I hesitate, but then I think about it. Once over the border and in Geneva, I'll be able to reclaim my bag and my passport, and once again be papered and able to withdraw money, have a shower and finally get to that junk store and get hold of the tape. Get back inside my own head. So I agree. He does a U-turn on the empty road and I gaze out the window again at the mountains and the snow. We glide. I begin to relax into the decision. The spirit of desperation retreats and my thoughts return to once when I was young. And I start getting excited again about what's on the new tape, what will reveal about the mysterious show, its mysterious creator, its origins, and perhaps what happened to it and to her. These thoughts occupy me as we make a turn off the main road and into a pine forest. We follow a path up to the gate of what looks like a summer camp from an American horror film, a collection of wooden chalets arcing around a lake. The man with the long grey hard rock fan hair and the leather trench coat and the strangely sharp teeth gets out of the car and makes a phone call. Then he smokes a cigarette while I sit in the car. After a while, I hear the sounds of footsteps approaching, and a figure emerges from the tree line and takes out a key and unlocks the gate. I get the feeling that it's time for me to get out of the car, but I'm not really sure why. It just feels right. Like it's what's expected of me, and I hate to disappoint. So I open the car door and walk over to the gate. Once out of the shadows, I see the second figure as a woman in a green boiler suit wearing wellies. She waves me towards the gate and turns around and steps back behind the tree line, and I follow, snow crunching underfoot. In the distance, I hear the sound of a car driving away. I follow, head down, the woman in the boiler suit's footprints through the forest, and then down past the chalets that arc around the lake. She leads me to a hole in the fence, and still not having muttered a single word, indicates with her arm that I should go through it. And so, yet again, not wanting to disappoint, and also realising that I am now committed to this course of action, I go through the hole in the fence. On the other side is a well-trodden path. While walking along the path, I think back to the start of my trip. I think about when I set off from my flat the day before. I think about any possible mistakes I'd made along the way, and about the things that brought me to this moment. I visualise a series of doors closing, bridges going up in flame. I realise I've lost track of time, of how long I've been walking. My hands are numb, it's cold, and I'm not sure where I'm going. I can only keep going and hope that everything starts to make sense again, that the path ends somewhere. Ahead I see a train track, and on the train track a stopped freight train. I suppose this is the opportune moment, the last open door. And then I panic, and I think, what if the train pulls away? I run alongside the train and see an open door. A figure appears at the door and leans out, reaching for me. I reach out and the figure pulls me up inside the train. Inside are other people, in the shadows. The atmosphere is contorted. People stand like they're being held. The pugilistic figure who pulled me into the train forms us into a line and locks the door. I feel inclined to follow the group through the door. On the other side is an empty boxcar. I notice 6 squares spray painted onto the metal floor. Each one is about a foot by a foot. The others in the group each take a square and stand in it. One is left free. I assume I've missed some kind of briefing or explanation of what this is and why we should stand in the squares, but it feels like it's too late to ask, and it's too awkward to refuse. So I make my way to the last free square. Once I'm standing on it, I notice that it's rubber. A small square of rubber on the otherwise metal floor. The door slams shut, and then the train starts moving. I look around at the other 5 figures, each on their own square foot of rubber. Looks of extreme concentration. Through the one small window I hear the wind and smell the trees. As the train increases velocity, the boxcar begins to shift and rock. The looks of extreme concentration are now even more extremely concentrated. And I notice that they're concentrating on their feet. And then I understand. The chain buckles and the looks of extreme concentration change into a look that we all know. That perfect thought. I'm going to die.